welcome to the May 6th, 2024 meeting of the Transportation Committee. My name is Jason Cromwell, and I'm the chair of the committee. By Assistant District Manager Brandon Burke. Meeting is called to order at 7:01 p.m. As a reminder, New York State law requires all community board members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and the person that.
By the way, the speaker is not coming through. The sound is muffled.
Is that any better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry, I was too far. As a reminder, New York State law requires all community board members who are not able to attend the meeting in person to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. B, is that better? Yes?
It is.
Excellent, okay, great. Members of the public who are attending virtually, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. Members of the public who are here in person, you can raise any questions that you have by raising your hand. If there's time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. We need a volunteer to take minutes tonight. Would anyone like to take minutes tonight? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we will now take attendance by roll call. Brandon will conduct a roll call.
Members, I will call your names. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is a quorum. Pete Isman.
Present.
Rob Friedman.
Present.
Jason Fromowitz.
Present.
Marion Rose. Here. No, she's unwell. Matt Roberts. Also with us. Larry Shire.
Present.
Gabe Turzo.
Present.
Jerry Weinstein.
Present.
Haider Zaidi, I also do not see with us, but we have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Brendan. All right, the agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. All right, seeing no objection, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Just it's a bit of a packed agenda, so I'm going to try to move us quickly through it. The minutes from the April 1st meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hand. All right, seeing no objections, the minutes from the April 1st meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and I will identify you so you can speak. Committee members who are unable to attend in person, if you have a question about committee business, you may raise your hand through Zoom and I will identify you so you can speak. All committee members, it is extremely important that only one person speak at a time so that members of the public watching at home can understand what is being said by each committee member. The chat function for committee members present via Zoom should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties that you are having or to state in writing information that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. All right, moving on to tonight's agenda. We have number one presentation from the Department of Transportation on proposal to repave both tubes of the First Avenue Tunnel from 40th Street to 49th Street and to convert the west lane of the West Tube into a one-way northbound protected bike lane. Colleen, you have the floor.
Yeah. Hi, Jason. Hi, committee members. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We have a great presentation that we're going to deliver to the community board. If you can hold all your questions to the end. My colleague, Hayes Lord, he is on the meeting and he will deliver the presentation. So thank you so much for hosting us this evening.
Thank you, Colleen. Can I share my screen?
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, bear with me a second. Thank you, everybody. Again, I'm Hayes Lord with the Bike Unit at DOT. Over the next hour and 45 minutes, I'll give you a nice presentation on the First Avenue Tunnel. Just joking, just joking. I know this is a tight agenda, and you will be absolutely amazed by the length of this presentation. So by way of background, First Avenue has experienced the protected bike lanes over the course of basically 7-8 years. When we started in 2010, when we got up to the United Nations, it was approximately in 2011, but we then stopped at basically 49th Street. And then from 49th Street back in 2015, we installed the protected bike lane up until the in the 60s. During that time period, when we were redesigning that section of 49th Street North, we ended up making some changes through the tunnel to be able to channelize the traffic better, because we were installing a protected bike lane, but we were also adding some pedestrian features in front of the island. So we had to make several shifts. So in fact, the west tunnel, or the west tube of and on the west side of the tunnel, we ended up converting that to a merge lane. So in fact, it's really never used besides motorists who are looking to speed through the tunnel, wanting to pass slower moving vehicles. So what we've wanted.
We just lost your
We
audio.
lost you, Hayes. Let's give him a minute.
You're on mute.
Give me 1 second.
You need to unmute yourself.
I'm gonna text him. Hold on. I just messaged him.
Yeah, he's currently on mute. So we wouldn't be able to hear anything as long as he's on mute.
Well, I emailed him. Let me just let him know that he's on mute as well. I think he knows.
All right, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my God, I don't know why it just dropped me like that. I do apologize. For those of you who've experienced the United, and so by way of having the United Nations, where it is, for anybody who cycled up First Avenue prior to 2019 knows that there was some there was the security zone, and there wasn't a proper detour provided to cyclists, so they ended up going wherever they possibly could to get around that security zone. But in 2019, we actually started working with PD and Homeland Security and everybody else to be able to continue cycle traffic through that area. And because we had created that merge lane in the West Tube, we actually were able to create a temporary protected bike lane to get everybody through. So we saw this, and we've been doing this over subsequent years very successfully. We've learned lessons, and now we actually want to be able to make it permanent. So what we are looking to do, here's the West Tube. Anybody who hasn't traveled through there, every September, we drop barrels, we put caution tape, we move, as you can see, the Jersey barriers in the second photo down below. We always shift those over because those help with the merge lane to be able to provide protection. So what we want to be able to do now is simply to drop Jersey barriers through the entire tunnel. However, there will be breaks because our maintenance crews from Bridges, who is responsible for the tunnel, needs to provide, needs to get access. So there will be breaks, but it should be well protected for the length of the tunnel. The other things, because we already have an existing protected bike lane, is we're going to just make some design changes. So clearly, entering into the tunnel, we have to make some design changes to be able to make it run as smoothly as possible with minimal conflicts. And then we are looking at potentially improving the intersections at East 45th Street and East 47th Street. And then outside of the tunnel, we're looking to actually add, when we did work there years ago, we put in basically a sidewalk extension, but it was for bikes to be able to get around all the traffic that was coming off of East 48th Street. But we never actually ended up putting in markings. So we want to do that, as well as some additional protection on the approach to 49th Street, because that does get a little backed up. We do have to provide we can't do protection the entire way, because motorists have to turn. Also, the cyclists will probably want to go around the turning vehicle, so we allow for certain flexibility there. And that's it. What did I tell you? Very quick presentation. So if anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer. Oh, as you sort of read in the introduction, this is all following a repaving. And so we're trying to coordinate with our roadway repair and maintenance folks to be able to time everything, because we need to essentially be out of there or do whatever we need to do before the United Nations General Assembly at the beginning of September. So really, we have to finish off before the last week of August. And if not, then we just have to wait for the UN General Assembly to be finished. So there's some coordination there going on, but we'll work it out, and we'll also notify the community board when we do plan to implement this project. Thank you.
Can I ask, could you just zoom in on those pictures? Yeah, before you close out. I was having trouble myself seeing them.
Yes.
I've got a question while you're pulling that up. Are there any changes planned for the entry, the markings for the entry of the tunnel? I think the slide you showed just showed stuff changing at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, I mean, so we're still trying to, I don't have any design to be able to show you, because we're still trying to figure out, the best way to be able to control traffic that's going up onto First Avenue instead of the tunnel, who is going through, and those also who are making a left onto 42nd Street. So we'll be, working out some level of design, but I don't have that to share with you right now.
Okay. Also, as it relates to that, I'm generally concerned with the current design with the bike lane on the traffic that travels up to continue on to surface level of First Avenue. Right now at the intersection of 42nd Street and that up ramp, the bikes, which I took this route to get here today, are split in between. You have turning traffic, a lane for turning traffic to the left. You have the bike lane in the center, and then you have another lane of travel on the right for traffic traveling straight. It's a bit dangerous, in my opinion. It makes me uneasy every time I go through it. So I'd love to see the designs reflect an improvement on that.
Right, and you're not alone, but we're still trying to figure out what type of design. One of the things that I would want to do, because I think one of the nerve-wracking things might be just the speed that comes off of the avenue. Yes. And going up to 42nd Street, and you also have this cyclist going now downhill for a short while, then up. And so I think being able to significantly reduce that speed will sort of help with the quality of that environment. Right now, according to our design standards, or the federal design standards, having the bike lane to the right of the left turning lane is the preferred approach. So, but I still want to see what we could possibly do to make those improvements since we're touching the street. So I hear you. Thank you.
I have a bit of a dream, I suppose, but I'll put this in your head, closing off that lane entirely to traffic. From my own observations on the avenue, there's very little traffic that actually utilizes both ramps on the left and the right of the tunnel. I think, and I would encourage you to analyze whether or not the traffic volumes are going up would be sufficiently addressable on just that right section.
Okay, I certainly can. I think preliminarily the traffic volumes are a little on the higher side, but I duly noted because I think, you know, we want to be able to create the best possible facility for anybody who is going, any cyclist who is going up onto surface level, who is then, you know, turning westbound at some point in time to reach their final destination.
Yep. All right, Larry, good.
Yes, I have a few questions about the experience in the tunnel, but want to echo what Jason was saying about that experience of trying to come up that incline toward 42nd Street. It's really difficult on a traditional bicycle, and to have cars whiz by on either side of you is very scary. If you could move that bike lane to the curb, as be consistent with the rest of that First Avenue bike lane, that would seem to make some sense and a very simple solution. Now, inside the tunnel.
I'll move to a picture of inside the tunnel. There we go.
I understand that you're.
We can't see your screen if.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's.
Okay, I understand that you're going to be repaving this. So I hope that when you're finished, there won't be puddles that will ice in the winter because the drainage will be satisfactory. And then I assume that's your goal, right?
You know, we will do our best to handle the drainage. I know there is, you know, I'm in that tunnel. I helped set up the United Nations General Assembly, so I know that tunnel. And this year, or 2023, was the first year that I had to set it up in the rain, which is never too fun, except luckily I was in the tunnel for part of it. But I do recognize that there's some ponding issues. I can't always guarantee that we're going to be able to solve it, but clearly we want to be able to make sure that it's a safe facility. So.
Hi, Larry, it's Colleen. And whenever we repave a street, we always look at the complaints we receive about ponding, and we try our best to address that. Okay, so we'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay, great. Now it's a little difficult to see from the photograph, but in many of the tunnels, you have a leaky coax cable that allows for cellular communications. Does that exist in this tunnel, and is that going to be installed? I'm concerned that if somebody has a crash on a bike and they need to summon help, they won't be able to do so.
I actually will have to check with you on this. However, I have been in the tunnel and have been able to listen to music. So via the, you know, and that's not recorded. That so but I'll certainly check on that to make sure that there is access to cellular service.
Right. Similarly, I don't know whether you have cameras there, the DOT cameras, to observe the conditions. Is that something that currently exists or will be going in there?
What type of conditions are you referring to?
Well, if there's a blockage of some sort or an incident.
Okay, well, thank you. Social media has been extraordinarily good at letting us know when there is blockages and other issues. So I don't think, and especially First Avenue is a heavily traveled cycle corridor. So there is going to be plenty of people who are going to be doing whatever is necessary to respond to whatever is happening in the tube.
So you're saying there are no security cameras in there?
At present, I am not aware that there are any.
Okay, and the last question that I have concerns the ambient noise. driving, riding a bicycle next to cars in a very hard surface tunnel.
Right, and that's a very good question. There is noise, but I think like a lot of people, they're wearing their headphones, at least in one ear, which is allowed by law, maybe not two. And you're also in the tunnel, even if you're just using, your pedal power, human power, instead of on an e-bike. It takes you probably 2 minutes to get through the tunnel, if that.
Yeah, well, it could damage your hearing if it's loud enough.
Yeah, I've been in this tunnel quite a bit of time, again, at Unga. If you do have those issues,
yeah, somebody leaning on a
you can go to surface level. So luckily there's an option. If you don't like the reverberation of whatever noise is in the tunnel, you can go upstairs and experience a different type of noise.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I love this idea. I've biked this tunnel quite a few times. My question is on the north side, reconnecting on First Avenue. That's always quite a hairy experience. I was unable to tell from the presentation. Is that going to be that connection going to be eased?
So that connection is, if you've ever taken Unga, or this design during Unga, it'll pretty much be the same as you experience, but we're still trying to figure out the best design, but it'll be similar to, what you experienced during the United Nations General Assembly. So, we will redirect, we'll, either stop or yield control cyclists so that they can, come to a near complete stop to be able to look at traffic that's approaching them from the left, to then join the bike lane against the curb. But that's sort of the current thinking of the design, but we'll continue to think through what's the best possible approach to make that transition easy, but I also want to be able to have it controlled as well, because you do have traffic coming out of the tunnel, right to your right, and then that merging traffic coming in from your left on 48th Street and the surface.
Thank you.
One second. Okay. Sandy.
I actually have ridden this during Unga. It's incredibly loud, and especially if cars are going at any speed. But it's also, I think it's a misnomer to say that we have a protected bike lane on First Avenue, because it's not. And I think we'd be a little bit remiss if we were to approve this without seeing what's happening as you enter and as you exit. Because it could be, during Unga, there's no traffic. There are no cars that you have to interact with as you enter into the tunnel. So again, I just think we should see a little bit more about what the full proposal is. If you're brave enough to go into the tunnel, that's great, but it's also, it's going to make a more complex situation at both the top of the tunnel and at the exit. And I don't really have a question, other than, if you could give us some more ideas about how that's actually going to work and how it's going to be a better condition for those on the street.
Again, we're still working through, figuring out the best design to be able to get cyclists from the existing protected bike lane over to the tunnel. The thinking is that it might happen at roughly around 40th Street to get them in line, and then let them go through unabated while shifting the motorists over into a separate lane to be able to exit to the surface level First Avenue and to turn left on 42nd Street. But again, we're still sort of, thinking about, the best possible design, because, we hear you and we want to provide the best possible, facility.
So you'll come back to us prior to installing anything?
I will check back to talk with others to see, you know, what we can do, because this will probably, you know, we're still trying to figure out the timing on all of this, so that also depends on, you know, when we can get the design going, and so forth, and what time we have to share. And you could be in recess. I don't recall whether you are in session over the summer.
Through the next month's our last meeting
Right.
until September. What roughly is this being? Are you bringing it to us now with limited designs because you're looking to move this forward as soon as possible, or?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we just wanted to get this in front of you because, you know, this was following a repaving. This is not sort of our standard, you know, bike lane project, which you normally do see, that it's very new. It's just like the street's getting repaved. We want to take advantage of this. And so, you know, we want to at least put something, you know, in front of the community board so they would understand what's being proposed.
So what's this time frame for it to be repaved? It sounds like that's somewhat imminent, or is that not the case?
It'll again, I said we're you know, it really depends on our roadway repair crews, where they are, and then, you know, whether we can schedule, you know, the first that we could potentially schedule this would be in July, which means that we would be hopefully out of there by, meaning when I say out of there, they've already done the repaving and then we've already put in all the markings. So that would be done by, you know, mid-August to late August, again, to avoid any conflicts with United Nations General Assembly. If that can't happen, and repaving, you know, actually moves forward to August, then we will have to wait to mark everything until, you know, later, or see if we can't push the repaving, which will probably be a little bit more challenging.
So is it feasible that we'll have to be able to come back with complete full designs, like as it pertains to the intersections and the merging points, in our June meeting? I'm happy to have a discussion and provide feedback ahead of that, you know, just continuing, just asking that, is that a reasonable expectation or timeframe, or ask?
I can't really tell you at this point. I'd have to touch base with the designers to see where they are, and you know, because we don't necessarily want to you know, rush this, except that, you know, so I don't want to be like rushing to get you something for the first week in June, when I might need another month to be able to you know, do any more analysis and you know, get a better product. So that's the, you know, what we're looking to achieve is to provide you with.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's Colleen. June would be too early for us to come back with a full-fledged design. This is why we want to implement the markings and the proposal Hayes brought before the community board, because every year, as Hayes mentioned, we work with the UN General Assembly and the 17th Precinct to lay out this design to make sure that cyclists are safe, as well as the traffic flow in that surrounding area. So, you know, once we get this implemented, we'll be more than happy to come back later on and share a potential design that we're working on with the community board.
Post-implementation, or just to share the designs that were implemented? I'm confused on your wording there.
We can come back to the community board and share a design that we are working on for that area after the implementation of this. So
there would be follow-up. I'm still having trouble following. So you're going to install something and then make changes afterwards, or you're going to install something?
We want to move forward with this proposal. And then, as Hayes mentioned, we don't have a design yet that we can share with the community board. We can work with our colleagues in the bike share division and put together something that we would come back and present to the community board.
Okay, so just to summarize, it sounds like, well, if we don't pass a resolution in support of this, we may lose the opportunity to implement it, because the repaving will happen over the summer when we're not in session and not able to discuss a design, and it would have to be implemented during that period of repaving. Is that a correct level setting?
As you probably know, our roadway repair crews go community district by community district. So they're in one district during one period of, 1 month, and then they move over to the next community board. And so that's where our limitations are. It's very hard to bring them back to a community board for obvious reasons.
Okay, understood.
So, yeah, and I'll just reiterate the design that you pretty much saw. If you did UNGA, the design will most likely reflect. So going into the tunnel and exiting the tunnel, and as I said, with both sides still need to be figured out with a little bit more detail how to safely cross the cyclists and the motorists. Without using, traffic signals, because if we were to use traffic signals, it will just, we won't be able to get this in, this year. We'd have to wait, because that requires much more analysis.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, let's go. I'll come back to you, Larry. Michael, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Michael Cohen. I would like to know how you plan to make it safe for everyone to transition between the bike lane on the street and the one tunnel. Like, will there be showers between the bike lanes, or will there be a way for drivers to be more aware of cyclists, or are we going from one bike lane to another?
Sorry, I really had a difficult time understanding your question.
I'll repeat. So the question was, as it pertains to the designs, will there be sharrows at the merging points? I think the answer, as you were saying before, basically is it hasn't been fully fleshed out yet.
Right.
And
we wouldn't use share. I mean, at this point in time, you'd be transitioning from a bike lane, and if it needs to be a mixing zone to shift people over, maybe that'll happen. But we really are not looking to create a shared lane type of situation unless, and if it is, it's for, less than 100 feet.
Got it. Okay. Larry, then I'm going to go to BIC. Just going to let you know.
Gabe and Sandy and you to a certain degree have laid out some concerns that need to be addressed when you do your design. I think that the committee, in some form or other, in writing, should communicate this to DOT so that they have something to look at, to make sure they have a checklist, to make sure they've covered these points. I'm sure you'll do a good job, but this might, if it's informal, would it be suitable, in the way of a letter that summarizes these points that with respect to these merges?
I think it'd have to be a resolution.
Well, we could do a resolution that just simply says that we understand that these are designs that are being made, and we want to emphasize these are points of conflict that need to be taken into account, and without saying a yay or nay to a proposal we don't know about.
So we can come back to that as we. Thank you for the feedback. We'll talk about it when we get to next steps. B, go ahead.
So I was going to follow Larry with part of the idea. I think certainly the concept we support. We don't support the idea of egress, of how you're getting in or out. And we really would like to see the designs of that before it's an accomplished fact. But I got the understanding from listening to the presentation that they may have to go so quickly that they'll go from design to implementation. And I think it's in our interest to make sure that we get the feedback. So Jason, I think if we could talk later, we might do a conditional kind of resolution supporting the concept, but also asking for them to come back and go over the designs and look at the safety.
To review afterwards, because it sounds like we won't have the opportunity to approve it before it's implemented, I guess.
Well, to review afterwards, but to also be able to do input to any changes.
Okay,
mean,
yes.
Yes,
Questions?
and Jason and committee members, once we do have a design in place and it's all flushed out, we will have a pre-meeting, and Sandy knows this, we'll have a pre-meeting with the community board and with the elected officials. And that would be an opportunity for you to also give us your input and weigh in on the design as well, okay?
Yeah, thank you. To those points also, I'll just sort of put some of my opinion out there, not just something to consider. I think traditionally, the Transportation Committee and the Community Board have the full details of a proposal and discuss and opine on the very specifics of the details of a proposal. I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. I think in this situation, we have a pretty good reason for why we may not have the opportunity to do that. And I think, again, just expressing my opinion, we should entrust the professionals at the Department of Transportation to implement a safe design and not necessarily require our full approval for bald changes. And I think it's warranted in this case. So just saying, I would be supportive of a resolution supporting this and entrusting DOT to come up with an appropriate design and with the opportunity to provide other feedback in the future. Brock.
Yeah, hey, so I agree with all the concerns raised, and you know, the bikes are gonna have to switch places with the cars, right? The bikes are going down the left side, the cars are going down the middle, and they're gonna have to switch. So whether that's a mixing zone or some other, or somebody has a stop sign, there's gonna have to be some kind of mixing. So I recognize it's gonna be unavoidable. But I just do want to say that I just want to applaud the DOT for bringing this forward, because it is a very innovative concept. I don't know how many bike tunnels we have. Maybe this is the first, to my knowledge. And it's a great idea that cyclists should have an express lane. And there's 3 other express car lanes, and now cyclists have an express car lane. And I think you're thinking along the right lines, and I just wanted to applaud you for that.
Thank you.
I'll also add there that I think it's important safety initiative to reduce the amount of conflicts that are, by taking the tunnel, you reduce the amount of conflicts that you would otherwise have of turning traffic. So it creates a safer environment for cyclists as well. Sandy, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that if the Transportation Committee would like to review the proposal, you could have a meeting in July or August to do that.
But then we wouldn't be able to pass a resolution, I suppose.
But at least there could be input from the committee and potentially a resolution. I mean, we've done letters of support. There are other means that we sometimes do.
Got it. I would be supportive of that. I don't know how others do. Okay. Did we have, okay, I see we have Andrew, you have the floor.
Just give me a moment to unmute him. Andrew, you are now able to speak.
Hi, thank you. I hope you can hear me. Can you?
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am absolutely flabbergasted. I think this is the first time, and I've been on many, many of these calls, where the DOT has actually come and said, we want you to move forward with a plan, but we just don't have design plans to present to you. This is really the cart before the horse. And I'm somewhat offended by the DOT's approach to this, and they're presenting this to the public. They tweeted, and this is the reason I'm here, I've seen their tweets that have basically solicited the bike people and the bike lobby to show up on this call. And I really do think that has the potential to drown out the actual community and the community board. And you know, we do have situations here where there are you know, there's no answers on the actual pattern. There's no answers on security cameras. There's no real design plan, yet the DOT is asking us to just trust them. And again, there are more questions than there are answers. I don't see this as a serious proposal. It's more or less a rush job. And I do wish the DOT would also promote community involvement in community board calls that don't involve bikes, much like the 96th Street crosstown bus lane that they said they promoted last week at CB8, but I could not find it anywhere on social media. I sure found this on social media, and I would like the promotion on X to be equal. So good luck. I don't have a problem with bike lane. I'm just saying that it would be great if they came with a real full proposal so that you could pass a resolution that's fully informed. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep, thanks for the feedback. Okay, just want to recognize a couple things in the Q&A. They're mostly just feedback, so I'm just going to sort of read them for the record. There's one suggestion on staggering the light at 40th Street. So that would basically like to slow down to allow cyclists to have a head start getting to the tunnel. Then there is a comment about signage and just making it clear as to exactly which streets you will be bypassing as you reach the tunnel, which I think is a very good suggestion. There's a comment about obstacles, which is a manhole cover at not clear where, but there's also about a curve on 48th and 49th, which was already addressed. And then barricades, considering barricades, the location of the barricades near the Trump Tower on between 40th and 47th Street, and making sure those stay out of the bike lane on First Avenue. Any other feedback? Go ahead.
I'm new to coming to this meeting, but I will say Sandy's comments and Andrew's comments literally bring, if they don't bring clear to you guys, they certainly bring clear to people like me who were tired of things happening and then later on have to explain why it happened. We're still living between 30th and 34th Street with a problem 5 years now. When they put a bike lane in and took out pedestrian access, where there is no way for pedestrians to walk safely. There's 2 schools located. They did it overnight, and all of a sudden we're spending years fighting it or asking why it's still happening.
Sorry, where was that?
Underneath the FDR between 30th and 34th Street, which I'll send Brandon for the next meeting for you guys to look at. But we've been fighting with City Hall and Keith Power's office. It seems that if you don't have a plan, you can't vote on something without having what the rules and regulations are. It's like going into a sporting event. You can't join a football team and get on the field if you don't know what the rules are. So it just seems that I know that there's a lot more going on with people like me, innocent little civilians know. But from where I'm sitting, if you don't have a plan that has I do events for a living, if you don't have the entire event plan, you don't do the event. So I understand there's people pushing, rushing and trucks that need to be in certain community boards. But at the end of the day, we have to live with what you decide. So I think unless you make a decision with all the factors on the table in front of you, you can't make a good decision.
Thanks for feedback. So we have a resolution that was prepared. It's definitely going to require some tweaking if we want to consider it. Does anyone want to make any sort of motion with the as it pertains to the resolution that was distributed?
I see B's hand is raised.
B?
So I would actually recommend that we table it and that, Jason, we think about having a meeting in July or the end of June. But after listening to all the comments, I am concerned that we implement something that I accept the fact of your trust of professionals, and professionals could have the best interest in heart, but it doesn't serve the community. So I think we should consider having a meeting when there's a little more information on the design and some of the other questions.
Any other thoughts? I'll offer my a bit of a compromise, perhaps. Personally, I would like to see us pass something in support of this plan. Perhaps not necessarily supporting the full details of it. I would like to see, I would prefer to see us pass a plan pass a resolution that we support the idea of a bike lane in the tunnel. Suggest that we will meet with DOT over the summer to provide feedback on the specifics of the design. But I think I would be afraid of missing an opportunity to implement this important safety initiative by failing to pass a resolution here. Sorry.
Jason, I'd support that, but also circling back to what we were talking about previously, where Gabe and Sandy had some meaningful points that they thought should be addressed. We could point out that these were problems to be solved, and that's what we hope they will come back to us with solutions to.
Through a resolution.
Through a resolution.
Yeah, I agree and support that. Brendan, go ahead.
Yeah, just, given that full board is on Wednesday, if the committee hopes to, like, if the committee agrees,
We
if
can
the
do it.
committee wants to write a
right here.
resolution for full board on Wednesday, the committee may want to hammer out what sorts of concerns and clarifications lie here at this meeting it wants to bring to DOT. If the committee decides to go in the direction Jason is inclined towards rather than where B is inclined towards.
Brendan, can you bring the resolution up just to show what we may be looking at to potentially have to modify?
Yes, just a moment.
Just to lay out, I think we could probably keep largely the whereas clauses. I think we would have to change the, if we go with Larry and mine proposal, we'd have to change the resolve to be a bit more, we would have to adjust it.
So rather than the implementation, maybe the concept, because
Yeah, fine.
the
Great.
committee strikes me as being generally supportive of the concept. But it's just a question of the implementation. It may be a further resolve.
Right, and be further resolved with respect to the implementation. The DOT focuses, okay. Minute. Would like DOT to focus on the following.
Yeah. Considerations in design, design considerations?
Yeah, fine, we'll see how that flows. Colin. Okay, and now,
And then we can get into some bullet points.
right, and Gabe, you had a couple that you mentioned regarding the ingress and egress.
Yeah, the safe merger out of the tunnel back onto the First Avenue.
Okay, right, with respect to ingress and egress.
So with respect to egress,
Ingress and egress to the tunnel. To and from the tunnel.
so with respect to egress,
Ingress and egress to and from the tunnel. Go ahead, Gabe.
That was my primary one. And I think it's your safety stuff, like the camera.
Deconflicting bicycles and motor vehicles whose paths have to cross. Sandy?
My concern was upgrades to the existing bike lane that's on the surface, which already has difficulty with.
Right, upgrade the existing.
One lane, bike lane.
Yeah,
Do you wanna mention the locations? One was approaching 42nd Street and approaching between 48th and 49th Street.
so should I specify that or?
Upgrades to the existing bike lane between, was it 40? Well, on the approaching 42nd Street.
Where bicyclists now will have to go and either right and left, and the location, I think it's Jason mentioned the location of the bike lane. If it could be adjacent to the curb.
I'd probably suggest we put that as a separate bullet point because it's a little bit wordy.
Okay, on First Avenue, approaching, well, we'll make it right here, approaching 42nd Street.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And you can
Yeah.
say relocating the bike lane to the curb.
Second. Yeah.
And then another bullet point. Upgrade to the existing bike lane on First Avenue between East 48th Street and East 49th Street. Okay, how would you wanna, you know, what,
I mean, currently, there's the sidewalk portion, which has never been marked in the full time it's been there, so it needs to be clarified and probably enhanced.
do you wanna come up with a few words that get that idea across?
Remark the,
Remarking the, well, creating a protected bike lane. It is clearly marked.
Great.
Upgrading it to
Upgrading to protect, upgrading to a protected bike.
Say something that when the final plans are out, we would like to review them.
yes, but let's save that for another resolve clause, I think.
I can put a placeholder in at least.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Anybody wanna make a tweak to the grammar here?
I think, can we make some tweaks to, as long as we have the like general. We could do some post-production cleanup to this to make it a bit prettier, as long as, I think everybody's okay with that, as long as we're good with the gist and the messaging here. We can clean it up a little bit before it goes to full board.
Whose paths intersect? First. Instead of have to cross,
Where? Oh.
right there. Paths intersect,
I can find,
just, they don't have to, they just intersect,
Got
paths intersect.
B, go ahead.
So, I don't know if you could, yeah, I'm
Go ahead.
unmute.
Yep.
So I think on your first, be it further resolved, when you talk, you'd like the New York Department of Transportation to focus on the following design considerations. Why wouldn't you include in that and report back to the Transportation Committee? You're not reporting back, you're talking about final design, but you really might want interim designs. So you need to assure feedback going back and forth. And I think you're giving too much flexibility by saying just to focus on.
Do you have specific wording you would suggest instead?
Well, I would add to focus on the following design considerations and report back to the committee. Or to focus and report, let me just say, we have the word focus, to focus and report back to the committee on the following design considerations.
Okay, yep.
okay.
Thank you.
That can be. Did you have some, Jerry?
Whether or not it's worth at a
when we re-adjourn in this September to hear from you and how the community has been affected by a lack of pedestrian access.
It's a different matter.
That's a
Yes,
different, right.
Yes, I'm just saying, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's over
I
by,
acknowledge that your presence, I appreciate.
that's over by the heliport, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a lot. You know,
Yeah, we had discussions about that a few years ago when they implemented it.
I've been there 30, 40 years. I have a lot of discussions for you. But we'll get to it,
Mhm.
but I appreciate it.
Okay, any other comments, feedback, things we want to add to be further, to be considered for safety adjustments? No, okay, does anybody have any sort of motion they want to propose? As it pertains to this?
Let's call a question. Second.
All right, let's go to vote.
Okay, when I call your name, please say whether you're in favor, oppose, abstain, or not entitled. B. Disman,
In favor?
Rob Friedman,
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz.
In favor?
Miriam is here, but is down. She's giving a thumbs up, so I take that as in favor. Yeah, she has laryngitis.
Oh.
Matt Roberts is not with us. Larry Shire,
In favor.
Gabe Terzo,
In favor.
Jerry Weinstein.
In favor.
With 7 in favor, nobody opposed or abstaining, the resolution before us passes.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Nice team effort.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
All right, moving on the agenda. Next, we have a proposal to co-name the northwest corner of Eagle 49th Street and Second Avenue in honor of Stephen Sondheim. I believe we have a presenter.
Yes.
Okay.
Right here.
You have to sing it.
If you have anything, yeah, that'd be great if you had any brief
Can
words.
you-
You might want to
Come up here. And you can sing your presentation.
Obviously, the subject matter is not as serious as what you just discussed, so let's lighten up the conversation a little bit. My name is Bob Granick. I represent 3 social media groups that consist of about 20,000 members. They're all Soundtime groups. One is a Stephen Soundtime group. The other one is called All Things Soundtime. And the third group is Finishing the Chat. Now, like Hayes, who said he wanted to have a brief presentation, I also am going to make a brief presentation, which, by the way, is one of the principles of Stephen Sondheim. He had 3 principles of lyric writing. One was less is more. So I just found it interesting that Hayes also started off saying that. So Steve lived on 49th Street since 1960. He called it the house that Gypsy built. He took the funds that he made from Gypsy and bought that house. He wrote everything from a funny thing happened on the way to the farm, straight through, here we are, basically in that house. He wrote Sunday in the Park, which he won a Pulitzer Prize for, on the terrace of the back of his house, which faced community gardens. So, despite the fact that he was an international star, he lived his entire life within 1 mile of 49th Street. He grew up on the Upper West Side and an apartment on 80th Street. So I'm asking you guys to give a little special dispensation to him because of his international celebrity. Brendan had told me that, well, we'd like to have half the people in the community sign a petition. Now, if you look at the petition I gave you, there's quite a few international people there, not from the community. Although I personally, by the way, am from the community. But you'll find a splattering of people there from it, but I've got signatures there from Australia, all sorts of places in the world. Many of the shows that Steve wrote about were about New York City life. He wrote the lyrics of West Side Story. Company was all about New York. Merrily We Roll Along was all about New York. So he was a really New York urban-based guy. As a matter of fact, Melissa Errico, has done 2 Stephen Sondheim albums, just recently released an album called Sondheim in the City, which just has his city music on it. Okay, so Sondheim's mentor was and teacher was Oscar Hammerstein, and Sondheim had said that had he not been a composer, he himself would have been a teacher. And I think he took what Hammerstein had taught him and conveyed it to other people. There are many other composers that he mentored. That would include Jonathan Lawson. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie TikTok Zoom.
TikTok,
Boom. Yeah, boom. Right. It's all about Sondheim. Adam Gruttel, Mary Rogers' son, is another composer. Wrote Light in the Piazza. And Jason Robert Brown did Parade. They all were mentored by Stephen Sondheim. And he also wrote 2 books on basically teaching the art of lyric writing. One was Finishing the Hat, and the other was Look, I Made a Hat. And he also wrote a 3rd book with James Lapine, Putting It Together, which discusses how they constructed Sunday in the Park with George. He was also a prolific letter writer. I actually benefited from a letter that he sent me. And he responded to all his fans. He wrote thousands of letters. He wrote pieces in the New York Times editorial page, opinion page. He actually was the editor of the crossword puzzle in the Times for a while. He won 8 Grammys, 1 Oscar, 8 Tonys, an Olivier Award, a Presidential Medal of Freedom, Kennedy Honors, a Pulitzer Prize, and has 2 theaters named after him, one in the West End in London and one on Broadway. But this award is different than all the other awards that he received, if you guys decide this is something you want to go forward with. I mean, all the other awards were presented to him by kind of the elite on Broadway, politicians, high-level politicians, Pulitzer Committee. This represents kind of a grassroots movement of his fans, kind of saying a thank you to him for all the enjoyable evenings he presented to us. One last thing, Steve was a lover of words. He's agonized over just what words he should put in his lyrics. So I know you could call this, if you decide to do this, Sondheim Way, Sondheim Place. Personally, I'd like to see it as Stephen Sondheim Street, because I think he would appreciate the symmetry of that triple S. So for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any questions from the committee? Larry?
Okay, in one of the comments that you have here, there's a mention of Katharine Hepburn.
We don't have the Zoom, I don't have it printed out.
I'm sorry.
Airtable.
Yeah, they're
On the Airtable.
What about Airtable?
There was a comment about this location having been named with respect to Katharine Hepburn.
Right, that's true.
Is it already on the same block?
It's the reason why I'm asking for it to be placed on the northwest corner, because on the southwest corner, there is a sign, Katharine Hepburn Way.
I see.
Okay, so it doesn't override it.
No, and she had a great deal of significant contribution to that block, and not only living there, but in terms of the improving of the garden and so forth. Like to hear more about what Sondheim's personal relationship is to this corner that you're speaking about.
The answer is,
As opposed to the other one.
right.
Yeah.
You know, what is there an equivalence? That's all I'm asking.
The answer is I don't know. I don't know what his relationship was to the street. I know what his relationship and his meaning was to the city. And so he was kind of a solitary guy. You know, he stayed to himself. He was this incredibly smart guy who, a little bit of a recluse perhaps.
And he is recognized by a theater that now bears his name.
Right. I think the argument made for this is the fact that it's unique to the fact that no bigwigs are asking this to be done. It's strictly a grassroots movement of people who appreciate his It's talent. Now, I know there are other streets in New York, I've noticed this myself when I became aware of the fact there was a Catherine Hepburn sign there already. There are several streets in New York that have multiple street names on different sides of the street. 53rd Street is named after Lou Rudin, and there's another name on that street, 53rd and Lex. Where I live in the 30s, there's a street there named after two people. Now, the thing I'm concerned about, there's an actual lamppost where Catherine Hepburn's street sign is. The side that I'm interested in doesn't have a lamppost. It has some sort of pole, not as quite as high as a lamppost. I'm not quite sure what it's there for. I don't think it's a traffic light. There's another pole there that a sign could be placed on.
I would, I'm sure DOT can find a position for it. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about
I mean,
the pole.
you might consider putting on the same sign that, Stephen Sondheim had a huge following. I don't know how you guys feel about this. This might attract interest in the street, people coming to see the sign. And it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Does the community garden still exist there?
Can you go, I'm still there?
That you said his terrace looked out onto,
Right, about it.
does it still exist?
Yes,
Okay,
it's one,
just wondering whether or not.
it might be the only one in the city left.
Maybe the garden should be named.
Huh, but that's kind of a private thing. Only the 20 houses around the garden can see the sign.
Interesting. You're just a fan, right? You're not related in any way? As the
I met him
family?
once. I did meet him once.
Has the
He had a
family been consulted?
reputation- he had a reputation for being not, as you say, somewhat reclusive. He had a reputation for being abrupt with fans.
Not on the estate.
The estate, yeah. Has anybody from the estate been contacted for feedback or no?
The only person of prominence who signed my petition is Melissa Erica. Everyone else is somebody who's strictly a fan. She's somebody who sings his music.
Got it. Okay.
Well, I think maybe the question is there any chance that somebody from his estate could have a problem with this?
Why would they?
Well, I
I don't
think
know, it's just a matter of diligence.
Yeah, just suppose they, for some reason, could be upset by having his name put on a New York City street.
Wrong corner or whatever,
Yeah,
maybe they prefer like on the garden instead of on the street, It's a
I
matter
would
of
have no way
courtesy
of
and
contacting, as a
diligence.
fan, I would have no way of contacting his ass. He was married. And other than that, he didn't have much of a family.
We had a publicist?
Yes.
had though. I wonder if they're retained and posthumous. So
Well, again, he doesn't know how to contact the estate.
yeah,
And, they're listed in circuits court and so forth.
I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
ICB's hand is raised.
So I do think you have to make two contacts. One is the estate, and that Larry's right, you can get that from Surrogate's Court, just to make sure. And second, I thought there was a formal foundation that was established. And if we could do a little research, if you could do a little research on the foundation, I think you don't want to select something that either of those two, if there is the foundation, would have a concern. And I think there was a lot of discussion on PBS when it did a number of its programs that had the information about organizations that are involved in supporting in his legacy.
Is there any time sensitivity here? If we were to ask to try to follow up on those things before we make a decision on this?
And this is lone wolf going out there, getting support of these social media groups to endorse it, but no, there's no time frame.
Would you be, okay, got it, never mind. Got it.
I just want to say, I think he is deserving of an honor, and he certainly does represent well New York City and honors New York City. I think the street sign would honor him, but I think just the due diligence thing, making sure that nobody's going to be upset about it.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Here's a law firm weighing in on his estate. I'm not going to read that. because he left it to his husband and created a revocable trust.
Do you need me to copy this down and contact
Well,
them?
just take a picture of it.
Okay.
All right, so unless there's an objection, I think the consensus here is let's table this,
Yeah.
pending
Yeah.
some outreach to, his state and or foundation.
You know, let's
Is it a good idea
let's
to do
make
it,
sure
or would you
that
like to
those
do it?
who are closest to this want this.
Yeah, I would ask you to, please take that, follow up, and then, I'll be happy to hold the spot for you on the June agenda to come back.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm not quite sure if I could read this. Okay, I think I have it.
Yeah, so apparently he didn't really plan.
He didn't plan to have his name on this.
Well, he didn't die after long illness.
Right, I got,
Abruptly. And so his affairs were somewhat in order, but it looks like the brunt is with his husband and that there is a foundation, that's a trust.
so this is the law firm that represents the
Well, I think they're just weighing in. I don't think it's gonna be hard to find.
foundation
but-
itself.
Well, the trust, it is literally called.
Could we have a big agenda?
Yeah.
We'll connect by email afterwards.
Okay, fair enough. You have my-
Yeah, we'll work with Brendan.
Thank you.
All right, any contacts you can give me, I need to get in touch with us, please let me know.
But yeah, let's see if we could, ideally, if they could give us some sort of statement in support of this, or if they don't respond, then we can consider it with that in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, moving on the agenda. Next, we have discussion of designated drop-off and pickup area for Skyport Marina events. Brendan, I didn't really think this through ahead of time, but would you like to start off on a presentation on what's going on here and constituent feedback we've had? Do you
Yeah.
mind? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's fine, and in fact, the main individual who's reached out to our office, sorry to put you on the spot, Steve, is also present, so if there's anything that I talk about that you missed, or if there's anything I talk about that I miss, feel free to interject as well. So, long story made short, you also get a photo of. Okay, so this is one photo describing or showing the current situation, here's another one. So what happens is there's the Skyport Marina, on the east side of the FDR Drive, just north of East 23rd Street. And, on weekend nights during the peak season, so from about this time of year through the summer and into the early fall, the traffic is horrendous after Skyport Marina events, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights during peak season. And it is so bad that from what our office has been told, ambulances literally cannot quickly get to Waterside Plaza if an ambulance had to get there. So that's a real sort of, that's a life or death concern. A number of observations have been made in terms of what is causing this. One of them is that there are a lot of ride shares in the area picking up people after Skyport Marina events. So one of numerous possible ideas is figuring out how ride shares can sort of come in a more organized manner, to say the least. There are a number of other ideas for what to do with what's going on Friday and Saturday nights. Our office is already in touch with City DOT and with EDC because there is some congestion caused by the garage near the marina. We're in touch with the Eastside Coastal Resiliency Project because there are concerns that maybe some of that construction might also be causing some congestion. So there are a lot of moving parts and pieces that may be contributing to what's going on Friday and Saturday nights. But that's a basic summary of like where we are with this situation. I don't know if there's anything I missed, Steve, or.
Well, just recently had a fire on the Waterside Plaza. There's about 3,000 residents at Waterside Plaza. For the last 12 years, since Hurricane Sandy.
Do you mind coming up just so that everybody can
Have a seat.
see you, hear you? It sounds like you have a lot to, I'm assuming you have.
I'm gonna try to keep it short, because I know you all work on it. So since Hurricane Sandy, we've had the VA hospital wall going up. We've had DOT redesigning the street across the street, taking away the street that used to be Astor Levy and now making it a park. The area has become, and I've lived there since 1990, so I'm a pretty good mature person to tell you what it used to be was quiet, and now we've allowed party boats, which, by the way, are booze cruises on Groupon. So if you want to talk about who's coming out of these boats after and driving out of the parking lots, both the Waterside parking lot and the Marina parking lot, I don't want to tell you that accidents have happened. The crowd is not the community. It does no good for our community because they don't do what go to our businesses or our restaurants. They simply come to the boats, go out on a 2-hour cruise, drink, get back in their cars and leave. My concern is this is me on a bus. It took 17 minutes to get from First Avenue to Avenue C.
Can you give a date and a time that this picture was taken?
I can look it all up. I can give you, I have 5 and 6 years of this.
Okay, but what
Yeah,
we're
I
looking
will.
at would be helpful.
Does that,
Yeah, this specific photo, I don't see a date stamp. But what I mostly did was select, like, he sent he had sent a number of photos, but I selected a couple that I think show
I will get you the
just
date.
how bad it can get.
We just had a fire 2 weeks ago. I can show you the picture of how the New York City, basically FDN, while I was there, with 35 trucks.
Mhm.
Any second minute lost for an ambulance or a fire truck to get to our complex is pretty serious. It is already a bottlenecked area. It is not well zoned for 300 people at a time going on boats, but I can't get rid of the boats. So the only thing I can do is pray on you all to figure out a solution to the safety so that I don't have to live with. I can show you pictures of hundreds and hundreds of people outside my building at night, and this is not at 8 o'clock at night. These cruises go till 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's pretty concerning to us. And that's.
thank you.
fine.
One quick question, Chuck, is there a season summer or is it 3/4 of
It's
the
just
year?
started.
Mhm.
It recently just started.
Mhm.
But we have like a hot dog vendor who, there's no sidewalk to walk on. There's no access for pedestrians, much less cars and vehicles. And I can show you, I'm on a high floor, so I've been taking pictures of the entire area. But it doesn't seem like anybody, I mean, I've called the 13th precinct. Getting them to answer is also quite hard on the weekend nights at midnight. But my concern is someone is gonna die if they haven't already, or, it's an area fraught for a problem to occur, and I would rather bring it up to your attention as much as possible so that we can avoid it or
And
fix it.
so what we're looking at here, this is.
This is on 23rd Street looking eastbound. This is the gas station.
Yep.
So the FDR is here, but I have hundreds of pictures, well, maybe 50 pictures, from different angles, at different times of different parts of the season, of different times of the night, of what, here. So this is Waterside from here. This is what's going on. And quite honestly, the resiliency project might have made it a little worse, but it was prior to their.
Right.
That whole zoning thing is just a fiasco. And I don't know who to talk to or go, I've gone down to DOT, I've gone down to economic development, I've tried to talk to people, find out who owns it, but it's.
So the primary issue, it seems, is collection of TLC vehicles for rideshare vehicles?
Everything. It's a horrible traffic pattern to begin with.
Yeah,
And exasperated by not only the ride shares, which have gotten worse in the last 5 years, but the drivers who are coming in. I mean, I can get you the numbers of what goes into the Waterside garage at night from these people.
Is it coming in or coming out or both?
Both. I mean, they come in at 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, depending on what boat they're going on. They park, they go on the cruise, they drink, and they get in their cars and they leave.
Right, but as it pertains to the congestion, is it,
It goes from about 9 PM till about 1:30 AM.
but is that mostly the exiting, the disbarkment and like
Both.
it's both?
Coming and going.
Okay, got it.
So.
Good.
I think based on what we know, there are about a dozen boats, right? Is that correct?
EDC has never really given me an exact count of the number of boats.
There's
So
5
that,
that are really major boats.
Okay, but they may have multiple departures, like for a 2 hour.
yeah, there are multiple
Cruise.
departures and arrivals.
And so the real issue is the sequencing. If they could be coordinated through Docs NYC, given certain slots whereby they would depart, arrive, as you would with the airport slots. You might have I don't say it would succeed for sure, but it might go a long way toward rationalizing the arrival of vehicles to pick up people who are just kind of hanging around, and they're not making money while they're waiting for the boat to arrive. But if there was a way of better coordinating the schedules, this might be alleviated somewhat.
Somewhat, but I mean,
And then there's also the question of, is there any way to use the parking underneath the FDR Drive, like you have an airport lot for Ubers, to require them to pay to wait for pickups and be prohibited from hanging out right in front of the gas station.
yeah, so that was something that came up as we were pre-discussing the situation. Was the idea of a designated pickups area. I don't know about the parking area there. Well, there's another related matter that I'll bring up in my report about that. But I think one of the open questions I have that I still don't have an answer for, I don't know, Brendan, if you do, we would need the cooperation of the rideshare apps to require and enforce a pickup area. It's not as simple as just saying this is the pickup area.
Right.
The apps would have to direct their passengers to go to those areas to get their passengers, and passengers would have to be directed to go to those areas. I'm not clear on so there is a process for that. It's done in like major events and stadiums and arenas. I have my research, I could not figure out what the process is to ask for that. I made some attempts to reach out to the apps. I got no response. Brendan, I know you were in touch with TLC. Did
Yeah,
you
he was
hear
not
any?
able to come to tonight's meeting, but,
But the major entity that has control at the top is the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and they have the subsidiary that runs the Skyports Marina Garage,
correct.
a different
I
subsidiary.
talked to the manager of the garage, who
And what
by
do
the
you-
way
what-
doesn't
what do
work
you-
at nights,
Okay, what
on
do
weekends.
okay, but what do you know? Tell us what you know.
What I know is, he tells me there's a security force there and they're working on it and they try to do their best, but their best has been shitty for excuse my French, sorry, I speak French. Their best has been horrible. And I mean, I'm telling you, I've been fighting them or calling this out for a very long period of time, as you can imagine.
We appreciate you bringing the problem to our
It
attention.
doesn't seem, quite honestly, if I had, you know how you had your special, your love of put the tunnel in?
Yes.
Mine
What
would
you
be, these boats should be going to the South Street Seaport, or they should be going to the West Side, because this community, this cannot handle the traffic that these boats bring. I understand that it's a capitalistic society, but it's not meant for that.
Do we have any resolutions in the past on as it relates to the location or relocation?
Quite a number of years back, I mean, that, in terms of the location and relocation of Skyport, that might be more of a matter for our land use and waterfront committee, but yeah, I mean, also that then goes into other issues of waterfront access, which I know the community board's been talking about for years, and like having a garage on the waterfront and all that. And that goes into a whole other can of worms beyond even
Yeah,
this committee.
I think that's, beyond the scope of this discussion about whether or not the cruises, I appreciate your desire for them to move. But I think that's probably out of consideration for what we'd be talking about right here.
Right, and that's also a matter that the waterfront specific committee has a greater amount of input on, but you're also welcome to come to the full board meeting on Wednesday, get your 3 minutes to get the politicians to listen to you.
About relocating it.
If I was gonna be here Wednesday in town, I promise you I would
You
be.
could attend by Zoom. Yeah.
I'll be on an aircraft flying over the Atlantic, so unfortunately I will not be.
It'll be hard to
It's hard to do,
coordinate that.
or else I would be.
Gabe, you had a question?
I mean, it just strikes me as perhaps we're not totally devoid of leverage since the EDC does control the docks. And that's just a preliminary jumping off point. I mean, this is they're private boats, private companies, and they're not private docks.
But they do charge for the use of the tie-up.
Of course, but they perhaps can attach some conditionality.
Yeah, I mean, they're operating a dozen sites. So, what is the past experience? I would wager that there have been other communities that have had issues. So the question is like, how people handle this.
We don't have too many similar areas. There's down by on the Lower East Side, there's a tie-up. I forget what the pier number is, where the sanitation pier is. And there's also an exhibit space there.
Yeah.
On the far side of it, they have some boats that tie up there, and there's a parking lot that that serves them. On the west side, we have the Chelsea Piers, and they have a large parking facility that handles that, and really you don't have this kind of issue, that at least I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
It's basically one, if we're just gonna talk about the traffic with you guys, it's one lane of traffic that comes from underneath the FDR Drive, turns on 23rd Street, that is the access to the FDR Drive and to Waterside. One lane of traffic. And anything that stops, or the numbers of people crossing in the crosswalk, creates.
Right. And you're showing in the daytime the parents waiting for their kids at the UN school.
I actually don't think that's what the situation is. I think there's persistent illegal.
You want pictures, I could give you I could sit you down like a family slideshow on a vacation if you want. Sometime.
So the main issue there, I walked by there, or ran by there rather, but then stopped to look. And there's a lot of vehicles that are parked in this area that is designated no parking. Most of them with some sort of either placard or some form of identification or other asking to be excused from the no parking regulations. And I think that's certainly exacerbating the issue here, is that if there was no parking there, then there would be more space for these pickups to take place. As we've discussed many times in this committee, there's a persistent problem with enforcement of parking regulations in our community board.
But
And
there's no space. It's one lane of traffic.
yeah,
One.
right.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for coming to community board and discussing it, and it's for sure a real problem, and I was gonna say, anywhere you put 300 people who are gonna order rideshare, I'm not sure there's many places in the city that can handle it, to be honest with you. Even if you put in the South Street Seaport, 300 people coming out, basically need buses to move them. Hundreds of cars coming into a small space and move hundreds of people. Basically trains and buses now you're talking about. So what buses serve there?
And
What's the
34A.
frequency?
M23,
Especially.
the M9, which
But
stops
that's a really
running
interesting
early.
idea, though.
But that's the third stop of the.
Could we expect
The M9 runs like.
the passenger? Probably
It's
not.
38.
I mean, it would be nice.
Well, it's only
having,
in one direction at that point.
Be nice having.
Hold on. One person at a time, please.
Sorry, it'd be nice having signage. When's the next bus? This is the next bus to Penn Station. It's leaving in 2 minutes.
These people are very few of them are taking the bus.
Yeah.
I'm on the bus.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest with you all. It's a combination of rideshare, but it's also them driving. These are not people from our community. They're coming from somewhere else. And they're coming specifically for this.
Right.
And there's just too many of them that are gonna cause a bottleneck in a very badly trafficked and badly designed area.
If they all go by car, it's gonna cause too much traffic. But if we can transfer them onto buses, they'll move. Because a bus can hold 100 people.
But how do you force them onto a bus when they get off onto land?
Force isn't.
Well,
Sure,
And they're driving.
not the right word.
You have a drop-off point and a shuttle.
Yeah, but so I love that idea of like get off the boat, get onto the shuttle, and then the shuttle drops you on like in the corner by the 6th train or something.
There's one other thing that
Well, hold
we
on,
haven't,
sorry.
okay.
I love that idea, but I would assume people would just not get on the bus and order the ride share.
We could negotiate, we could say, you should cut half the maximum amount of people, or you could do this bus thing. Be
Right,
like,
but-
we'll take the bus.
But at the end of the day, people are gonna get off the boat, off the boat and call an Uber. Regardless of if they're instructed to please get on the shuttle bus where it will transport you to where the Uber pickups are, people are just gonna order the Uber.
Can I make a few comments about this?
I will come to you in a moment, but thank you. 1 second, guys. So I love that idea. I just don't know the practicality of it. Gabe.
Two things. I mean, we could ask the MTA to incentivize and market bus use in this area. I mean, it is more robust and useful than I think the median booze cruiser might know. And it can't hurt to ask. And
Is it
second,
at like that hour late at night though?
we could also ask them to run the M23 more frequently. But it's not hopeless in terms of incentivizing public transit.
And doesn't
The
the
other thing is-
34A show?
I don't know if Colleen's still on the call. This is a famously Gordian knot of an intersection. This is not the first time someone has brought this intersection to our attention. And I do know that there are some redesigns in the works currently. And I was curious if perhaps they might actually help alleviate some of this. I don't know.
Sorry, if what would double it?
Like, I know that the DOT and Colleen are quite aware of this intersection, and they are kind of looking at ways to make it less of a disaster, like in the morning for the UN school and stuff. And I wonder if those changes could also incorporate this feedback as well.
Hey, so we did look at signal timing changes near that facility, and we did make some changes. We made some improvements. I know we've been in talks, thanks to Brandon. He's put us all together with EDC and the community board and the 13th precinct. And we were talking about ways to improve the existing condition and what's going on. And one thing that came up again was to come up with ideas in terms of identifying locations for the pickup and drop offs for these ride shares. And I think we're looking to have a walkthrough of the area with EDC, ESCR folks, and the 13th precinct as well. But we did implement some signal timing changes in that area.
Could you do that at night on a weekend?
Walkthrough. Probably not.
There's where the problem is.
But I think we're clear on the situation with the pictures and we'll be able to visualize where the issue lies.
I wanna,
Larry.
I just want to add two more things. One is, Steve, you pointed out that EDC does not have a night manager at the garage or anybody else who can be a supervisor of this situation, but there really needs to be someone appointed and employed to help untie this knot, hopefully not a Gordian knot. And there's one thing which nobody here has yet mentioned, but which we are aware of. The city wants to create a freight offloading facility from boats right here at this very location, which we have been made aware of. It hasn't yet developed into any concrete plans, but that will certainly, in the late night hours, complicate things.
We also have seaplanes on the weekends. I mean, there's a lot going on over here.
Yeah. I don't want to veer us too far off topic though on those. Those are still in the like RFP phase and will warrant discussion, but yes, there's a lot going on over here for sure.
My main concern is the safety of where I live and my neighbors. I have not gone to my tenants association, but I can certainly go there and get as many signatures as you all need for whatever you need, but
I don't think it's necessary.
somebody is.
Yeah.
I can show you a picture of what the fire department just did on the street. You're an ambulance, you can't get by here. There's one lane.
Yeah, thanks.
That's it.
Brendan, good.
Yeah, just a quick thought / question. Like, I don't know how you all would feel about, I mean, continuing the conversation with TLC, but in that conversation also asking, like, what sorts of arrangements are there at other like major event venues in New York City? I mean, a place like Madison Square Garden, which granted there are a lot more lanes of traffic on 7th Avenue than there are here, but there are also a lot more people attending a Knicks game than there are going to Skyport Arena. So like, I would be happy to continue the conversation with TLC and see what can be learned from those other major events.
Yeah, that would be my preference on where we go with this, because I think like ultimately we have to figure out how to corral the cars, and TLC should be able to help us with us, and they regulate the cars, so.
As I said, I'm happy to do the outreach, and even cite a place like Madison Square Garden or Barclays Center as examples of like, granted, more lanes of traffic than there are here, but also major event venues in very urban areas with lots of traffic.
They're also on multiple subway lines, so.
Also true.
Alright,
We don't have working in our favor here.
So
But still, I'm sure there are lots of taxis after Knicks and Nets games and Rangers games.
so go ahead and recognize your.
Parking the waterside myself. And in 2024, they changed the management company and they jacked up the rates. I'm a monthly parker, so my rate went from approximately $400 to $600. So as a result, the garage is empty. I used to be hard pressed to find, even though I had a monthly parking rate before, I had to drive around to find a parking spot within the garage. But now, because of the increase in the rates, is tremendous. I say 2/3 of the people parked in the waterside no longer park there. So the people that are going on these boats at night are not gonna get boxed up trying to get into the waterside, should they want to park there. There's loads of parking spaces. And the other thing you guys aren't considering is congestion pricing. It's supposed to reduce congestion by 18%. Now, does that end at 9 o'clock at night?
It does.
9 o'clock. The rate goes down at 9 o'clock
Goes down.
by 75%.
But largely the issue here is rideshare vehicles, which are impacted by it, but yeah,
Getting an increase.
they are. But my guess is that won't change much of this behavior heavily.
You're right.
But that's just my opinion. Okay, so I think we should table this pending follow-up discussion with
TLC, seeing what we can learn from other places.
in terms of what interventions they may be able to suggest in terms of moving the pickups or handling the pickups.
Okay, and also maybe contact EDC with respect to the management of the garage and Docs NYC. So they could be brought into the discussion.
So what would we be asking?
Well, I have a
Well, Docs NYC would be to see if they might have some suggestions relating to the timing of the departures, or they have any input or intelligence that would be useful. As far as the skyports go, try to find out if they could have a night manager on who could help out with this.
So to that point, could we ask EDC to provide traffic management staff or fund a police officer to be on site to direct traffic? I don't know how that
Yeah,
works.
so in terms of directing traffic, one of the solutions that we're trying to get is to have NYPD officers directing traffic before and after events at the marina. So some of that is already, I don't know if it's actually happening, but
It happened
it's.
one night, I saw the car out.
Well, maybe these boats could contribute to a fund that would pay for this.
Yeah, how does that, I don't know how that works, but yes, like I agree that some of the
Like a bid,
revenue brought
like a
in.
bid does.
Sure, yeah,
Because they would all be interested in making their
I suppose we,
passengers' lives easier.
I suppose we could pass a resolution asking for NYPD to be present in those locations. I don't know how effective that will be, but we could pass a resolution. I don't know. I take back that suggestion because I think it'll be, I don't think it will do anything. B,
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that there was a lot of comments being made and suggestions. I think we should do the appropriate follow-ups. We're not gonna solve this at this committee at this point in time. I would not do a resolution. But I think with Brendan can work with the committee and try to come up with a number of solutions. Then we could talk about who we are gonna task to try to solve the problem.
Yeah, and there are already some ideas and some solutions in motion or in the works, such as like how to handle flow heading to and out of the garage.
Yeah.
I brought up the NYPD traffic agents thing, which according to Steve, they're only there one night.
I saw it one night, I went out.
So I think, Brendan, we're not gonna solve this tonight, so I'm trying to have us move the agenda and do the work that we need to do.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move the agenda. Let's talk to TLC. Let's see if we can talk to EDC as well about funding, getting some police or security or traffic enforcement presence there. And then we can follow back up on this in June. All right, moving on. Unless anybody opposes. Okay, great. Okay, moving on to proposing a city bike station on the northeast corner of East 23rd Street and the FDR Drive. So this is sort of an adjacent discussion about adding a city bike dock in that same area.
Could help.
I don't know, well, Brock, it was your idea, so go ahead.
Yeah, so, you know, the area is very poorly served by, transport other than cars, which is part of the problem of the area. And if you look at this, image, there's this empty space that's not used, and it's actually a really unpleasant location because it's right by the highway, and it's just unused. And the greenway is right there, so it'd be a great, access point for people to use the greenway, to get to Waterside Plaza, to get to Peter Cooper Village. So I just think it's very well suited and it's not used, so.
Also, I'll point out that there's no city bike dock in close proximity
Yes, there
to
is.
Waterside Plaza.
There is 23rd Street between C and First, as well as between First and Second on 25th Street, are two giant city bike docks.
It's a
quite a
fairly
hike.
size,
It's
yeah,
quite a
it's a bit of
It's a
a
half a
sizable
mile.
walk, yeah.
Yeah, from Waterside to there and from Waterside to the Hunter one is the same exact distance. And
Still hike.
this is what happens just for an afternoon boat ride. This is where they line up their people.
They could adjust
Yeah.
that around
But
the,
there's no walking space. You put in a green space where there's jogging and bicycles, and when when Waterside residents wanna walk to 23rd Street, there is no space but that to walk in. Once they pass the sidewalk area.
right, okay.
So you're taking away,
Well, it wouldn't be taken away. It would just be, part of it would be used for city bike and it would be an amenity.
I'm not
for
going to the
people.
Solar One on the other side of Solar One.
Well, that's a construction site, and we'd be taking away park, like waterfront park space, whereas this is, as Barack points out, a fairly unpleasant roadway that isn't really suitable for other recreational use. So we have a resolution proposing, a request to ask City Bike to set up a dock here.
Move the question if there's no discussion.
Is there any other discussion from the committee? I'll add one thing, that I've heard a lot of feedback in that our community board meetings have been taking place at, Waterside Plaza. Members of the board as a whole have expressed, as well as members, residents of Waterside, who've been present at the meetings, have been, upset by the lack of City Bike dock. There have been efforts in the past to ask Waterside to allow us to place a dock on Waterside's property. They have not been receptive to those requests, for unclear reasons. So this is sort of a nice way to be able to do this somewhat closer, but, without having to get Waterside on board, and getting them to allocate a space. Does anybody second Larry's both question?
I second.
Okay, with that said, Brendan, we'll move to the vote.
Okay, when I call your name, please say whether you are in favor, opposed, abstain, or not entitled. Pete Isman,
In favor?
Rob Friedman,
In favor.
Jason Fromowitz.
In favor.
Marion Rowe.
Signing.
She says yes in the
She
chat.
says yes. In favor. Matt Roberts isn't here. Larry Shire.
In favor?
Dave Turzo.
In favor.
And Jerry Weinstein.
In favor.
With 7 in favor, nobody opposed or abstaining, this resolution passes.
All right, so we're not gonna have a ton of time to discuss the next item on the agenda. But I'll think we could do like a brief just overview and then like perhaps assign out some thoughts, some homework to community members. We have this process of budget requests that takes place annually, I believe, and actually, yes, thank you. And so effectively, we have these specific initiatives that the board as a whole would like to see funded. These things carry over from year to year. We are charged with seeing if there's anything we want to add or remove from this list. There's a lot here. Basically, when do we need this finalized by, Brendan?
So each year at October's full board meeting, the budget request list passes full board. The order of the list is discussed at September's and October's Budget and Governmental Affairs Committee meetings. So I would, Bea can correct me from her perspective as a member of budget, but I would say no later than September's Transportation Committee meeting, which would fall before budget likely. Although September's Transportation Committee would need to be scheduled because of Labor Day, so probably by June would be best.
We need to finalize the list by June.
Yeah, that's what I would advise, given the uncertainty with the scheduling of September's Transportation Committee, because the first Monday is Labor Day. I would advise June.
So here's what I would propose. I would prefer not to go through this line by line, first of all, because it's 8:50 PM. And second of all, I think that's incredibly boring for most people. I would perhaps suggest that we send this out by email and ask committee members to send me the details of anything that they think should be removed or amended. Then we could have a discussion in the June meeting, or added, that's not already here. And then we could have a discussion in the June meeting to iron out all those proposals, discuss one by one, which we want to change
Are we looking at all of them
I believe
in this committee?
there's 8 here, so it's, just one to overview. Yep.
Can you just restate how to think about this prioritization?
Can I ask either the treasurer or B to opine on that? Because I probably don't, either of you could speak more about this than I can.
Well, I mean, I think it's quite straightforward. It's whatever you think is the most pressing needs, kind of in conjunction with whatever you think is the most plausible to actually get done. And it's sort of, those are the two primary factors, and you sort of go from there.
So let me just echo a couple of things, because a couple of these recommendations have been on for years. You have to look at the agency response to them. There isn't a lot of specificity in a number of them. And unless we give specificity, the agencies really give very generalized bureaucratic response. So there's a philosophy, less is better. The more significant ones are what we should go forward with, and not just repeat what's there. So I think, Jason, it's really more scrubbing it, seeing what the responses are. Do you want to retain it? Do you want to scrub it? Do you want to expand it?
Do you have any objection to that being an async process where members of the committee review it and then we discuss specific proposals?
I think that's a great idea. And if members of the committee do not know why it's there and don't have the insight, it should be eliminated. Well, we have to make the recommendation to eliminate. We just did that in the Budget and Government Affairs. We had one thing on it, which we had no idea why it was still there ourselves. And we're going to recommend eliminating it when we do the next budget.
I've looked at these, and I don't think there are that many, and there isn't any here that I would see a reason for eliminating.
Larry, you have to look at the agency responses before you say that.
Fair enough.
I would also say if something is entirely within the purview of an organization that's going to be acting sort of on its own, then it need not be one of, in our district, needs statement. Like, so for example, like subway, Second Avenue Subway Phase 3, there are, any number of vested parts of the city and state government that have a reason to get that done. I would argue there's no reason for that to be a line item budget of the transportation committee.
Well, I disagree, and I think that in light of the recent proposal by the MTA, we need to push back, and this is our best way to do so.
Brendan?
But I think that's the debate that we have to have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you see in the chat, Jason, but Miriam said a couple things.
Thank you. Yes, let's recognize Miriam. Okay, so Miriam has some comments on number 6 on traffic enforcement. Okay, she's saying we could discuss it in next meeting, which I think is the right thing to discuss the specifics of each. I could bring them all together and then we can discuss them line by line.
I'm not going to most likely be able to participate next week. I just wanted to share that.
Okay, but still, please send the feedback and we'll address your suggestions and consider them. Is there anything you feel most strongly about?
The Second Avenue Subway, and I'm continuing what Lou Sapersky did.
Got it. Okay. Brendan.
Also, in terms of emails, are you gonna send it out? Should the office send it out? Just.
I'll ask you to send it out, but we'll talk.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Gonna move the agenda unless anybody's objection. Do we still have Colleen?
Hey, yes, I'm still here. How are you?
Good, thanks. You.
Sure. One major announcement that we have released in conjunction with the mayor is the Connecting to the Core, which is an ambitious effort to help New Yorkers access Manhattan Central Business District. So the New York City Department of Transportation, our commissioner, Ydanis Rodriguez, announced new efforts to improve car-free access to and through Manhattan Central Business District to prepare for the implementation of congestion pricing by the MTA. And in this press release, it includes 37 new projects in development for 2024 and 2025 there is a report detailing it. I shared the press release with CB6. And one of the major projects that we are looking at is improving the bus, is developing a plan to get buses moving faster on 34th Street in the heart of the central business district. So there are quite a few ambitious projects that we are working on, and we will keep the community board posted. Of course, with the 34th Street, this spans on 3 community boards. So that means we'll be working very closely with the 3 CBs and all the stakeholders and the elected officials. So I'll keep you posted with all of that information once more information is released. So thank you.
Excellent. I think Miriam had a comment here. Sorry, I lost. Okay, she's, I think gonna be writing it out. I know she had a question about signage by the, Midtown Tunnel, if you wanna put it out there. Does anybody else have anything, Colin? Good.
Real quick, I just wanted to follow up, Colleen, with, we passed a resolution calling on the loading dock on Third Avenue in front of the Trader Joe's to be a loading dock on Sundays as well. That's with Commissioner Pinkar. I'm just wondering if we can get a timeline on that.
Yes, you know what, Brandon and I can touch base about that tomorrow and I'll find out for you, okay? I'm sure it's being reviewed by our borough engineer.
If I could piggyback on a timeline question, any updates on Second Avenue, bus lane and bike lane improvements in terms of timeline?
In terms of timeline, well, when we presented, we did say that we were moving forward with implementation. You know what, let me find out more about that timeline and I'll share that with the community board as well.
Okay, sounds good, Brock.
Hey, Colleen, quick question. I saw that DOT put Third Avenue onto that plan. Do we have a timeline for that?
Well, we are working on that. So the good news is that we will be coming to the community board with a proposal. So again, this is exciting news. So I'm sure we'll be coming before the year end. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that expanding the wider Third Avenue. Yes.
Thanks, Colin. I just want to read Miriam's question comment here. So I'm just gonna, this is coming from Miriam, but I'm reading it out loud for the record. There is little to no enforcement of the city's noise code or quiet hours near the Midtown Tunnel, specifically between 2nd and 3rd Avenues, including Tunnel Exit Street between 37th and 39th Street. The noise from honking and sirens in the past couple of years has been worse than the last 8 years that I've been here. The past few months have been exceptionally bad. A lot of the noise is coming from intersections being blocked by motor vehicles, cars and trucks, and sirens from emergency vehicles going all day and all hours of the night. The sirens aren't always for emergency situations. Residents in the area are not getting a break. It's been proven noise pollution has detrimental effects on people's mental and physical well-being. There are tons of research, news stories, council hearings, and pending legislation on these issues. Her question for the Department of Transportation: what preventative options are available to address this noise? Can no honking or don't block the box signs go up? Can we become a designated quiet area so sirens aren't blasting in the middle of the night or early morning? How can DOT help make things better?
So Miriam, I'm so sorry that you have to endure the noise honking in New York City. But a few years ago, we did have no honking signs and do not block the box signs installed at intersections where we had the do not block the box markings. Now, with the honking signs, no honking signs, we had a decluttering program again a few years ago where we concluded that the signs were not effective at all. And for that reason, it's because in order for an officer to issue a summons, that officer has to identify the driver that is, honking their horn, making the noise. The other thing is, in order for the do not block the box to be effective, is that you had to have a traffic enforcement agent at that intersection directing traffic. So as a result of the declutter program and the ineffectiveness of these signs, they were removed. And it's unfortunate that, you know, you have to endure this. And you know, I'm sure that we're going to be looking at options and working very closely with the DEP. But what I do recommend is that you call, if there is a particular area that you've identified, to call this into DEP, because they will do some noise mitigation measures. They'll do some noise measures of the area, and they will follow up with you.
I'll just add, since there was some discussion between Miriam and myself about this over email, one of the things that we discussed as a potential solution or mitigation here is the noise camera enforcement program. We have a follow-up where we're trying to understand if and where those are placed as it relates to the tunnel.
Okay.
Larry?
Colleen, it's been many years since I've seen a traffic enforcement agent issue a summons for a vehicle that spilled back into the intersection, wasn't able to complete the crossing of the intersection before the light turned. Traffic agents are there, say 3rd Avenue, around 40th Street, 41st Street. They're not doing anything. Oh, it would be nice to see them do that.
Yeah. So Larry, what I recommend that you do is to contact a local precinct. There is a traffic unit division that you can also reach out to and let them know that at one point there were agents there and you'd like to know what happened and if they can place an agent at that location.
I'm saying the agents are there now, but they're not doing this enforcement that you're speaking of.
Yeah. And again, to each his own. I mean, agents are, you know, they are there to move traffic along. And if you see otherwise, then I recommend that you can have Brendan reach out to the traffic enforcement division and let them know. I'll be more than happy to put Brendan in touch with someone there.
Great.
All right, sorry, just looping back on the honking, recognizing Miriam again. She asks, do you know when the signs were taken down, and how to go about designating quiet areas, if that does or doesn't fall under DOT? Yeah.
Yeah, so Miriam, if memory serves me correct, those signs, correct, those signs were removed, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, or less. I'd have to, you know, confirm that, but it was a few years ago. And again, if a particular area is very noisy, as what you identified, I strongly recommend that you call it into 311 and they can come out and do a noise study of the area. And they would follow up with you because noise falls under DEP jurisdiction, not DOT.
Brendan?
I guess piggybacking off of some of the noise issues, just sort of a general question, just sort of food for thought for you, Colleen. Whether there are any particular areas in New York City where these issues have existed and the city has been successful in reducing noise. And so what can we learn from that?
Yeah, we've worked with Community Board 4 in the Hell's Kitchen area. And there was a neighborhood traffic study that was done and funded by the mayor's office. And that is something that's very effective. Maybe the CB can look into doing something like that. You can probably speak, you can actually reach out to CAU because they do have a program that would address specific issues within the community board to do, you know, the studies. And CB4 had embarked on this initiative or this program a few years ago. And it was an all interagency meeting. And, you know, we've worked with the community board and residents to mitigate some of those noise complaints. And I want to say that it was successful.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
Thank you for staying on with us.
Anytime.
All right. Moving on the agenda, we have the chair's report. I have a very quick chair's report. two things I wanted to talk about. One is the parking area beneath the FDR in the area of 23rd or 20th Street-ish and 18th Street. This area was closed off to traffic or closed off to parking and public access during the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. And it has now been repaved and restriped in what appears to be a return for it to be returned to parking. The Community Board 6 passed a resolution, I don't remember in what year, where we asked for that space to not be returned to parking at the completion of this Coastal Resiliency Project. Brendan reached out to EDC to reaffirm our position and ask for that not to become parking, but we have not received a response from them. As of right now, it's closed off, but it appears to be, being set up to be reset up for parking. So I think we're gonna continue to look into that, but just to note so that members of the committee are aware of that. And the other thing I wanted to bring up in terms of the Connecting the Core report, this is just me sort of, well, first of all, I want to encourage members of the committee to read or take a look through the report if you haven't already seen it. I'm just sort of taking advantage of the bully pulpit here, but I was very disappointed in the report. And just speaking from my personal perspective, I think it was fairly weak in making commitments to projects that are badly needed within our district and projects that we have specifically asked for, such as the 3rd Avenue bike lane. There was no commitment as to the timeline as to when that will be installed, or any commitment to the other enhancements that we asked for on 3rd Avenue, like expanded pedestrian space. Overall, I was just very disappointed by the report. I didn't think it went far enough, and I think it was fairly vague in the details. The other thing I'll mention on it was, as it pertained to our district, was 34th Street and improving bus transit times across 34th Street. And similarly, I feel it was very vague in terms of the commitments and what was being, there was a commitment to study changes to 34th Street. And I don't think we have any resolutions specifically on 34th Street, but personally, I would love to see a much more ambitious goals for 34th Street, such as a busway. And that was sort of mentioned as a consideration, but not a commitment in the report.
With regard to the busway, I've brought this up many times, starting with the initial proposals to have bus lanes on 34th Street. And that was to run the buses in the center, have stations at the intersections offset, which also double as pedestrian refuge. And that might be a good time to bring this up again.
We never passed a resolution.
No.
Did we? No. Yeah.
But I keep bringing it up.
Yeah, I think it's worth, I agree. I'd love to see an ambitious proposal like that. And there's just commitment to making some consideration for design changes. So I was disappointed by the report. I was hoping for something a bit more ambitious and detailed coming from DOT. And I was disappointed that wasn't there. So again, just sort of taking the bully pulpit here on that. That's all I've got. We will move the agenda on to old or new business. I've got one thing there, which is the pedestrian situation at the intersection of 23rd Street and the FDR. I appreciate we talked about that area extensively tonight. But as it pertains to the report that was delivered to us by members of the community a few months ago, there has been no action. Everything remains exactly the same as it was. We have been attempting to get a walkthrough with DOT and EDC of the area. There have been some turnover of staff. Somebody's leaving, which I think has delayed this slightly. I'm going to continue to push this. And I want to get Keith Powers' office involved to see if they can help us speed this along as well. But basically, no update. We're still trying to get a walkthrough. And we need to get this taken care of because it's incredibly dangerous. Any other old or new business?
And just make a quick comment that we're actively engaged with Grand Central partnership or bid, and we're meeting with them. We're doing walkthroughs with them, And anybody here has interesting thoughts about Grand Central Station, and these are very smart, very progressive people who did the Vanderbilt plazas, right? They're stunning. So if you have any ideas about 43rd Street between Lex and Third, which could be improved. There's a lot of room for improvement around that area. So I just put it out to the members of this board who I very much respect to think about that area and just email us with suggestions and thoughts of what you think could be done, should be done.
Barack, I just want to remind you something that this committee has discussed, in particular, urging a bus stop to be created around 43rd Street, where people come out of the Grand Central terminal. There are a couple of passageways plus the food market. And that would be a perfect place to have that bus stop for passengers who want to go to the station and want to go home from there.
43rd and Lex. We'll bring that up. Thank you.
Right now, they have a bunch of planters where it isn't doing very much.
Thank you. We'll bring that up.
So if you could just.
Okay, any other old or new business? Sure. All right,
Move to adjourn.
if yes, okay, any objection, we will adjourn at 9:12 PM. Thank you for sticking with us on the late meeting.
Larry, I don't want you to think